this webinar, we would like to highlight the transformative potential of education in prison and in jail settings for personal growth, well-being, rehabilitation, and providing prisoners with the tools they need to rebuild their lives and to successfully reintegrate once released. As mentioned already, I will moderate this webinar with my friend and colleague Jane Garner from Australia, who will introduce herself in a moment. But let me already say a few words about our presenter, Miguel. So Miguel is the coordinator of the Prison Libraries Plan at the Ministry of Cultures, Arts and Heritage of Chile. He's also the founder of RED LEEN, and he will introduce it to you in his presentation. It's the Iberoamerican network for the promotion of reading in prisons. His professional career, always linked to education and culture, led him to Chile, Spain, and France, including work in schools, museums, universities, and non-traditional educational centers. This webinar is part of our URL's global webinar series, Unlocking the Potential of Lifelong Learning, bringing together stakeholders from across the globe on the first and third Wednesday of every month. It is the second of 4 webinars we will do in this series on prison education. And we will have there a very closer look at innovative practices that are part of our case study collection, a database we have at URL that was launched last October, currently listing 16 innovative experiences from all over the world. You will find a link to this online collection in the chat in a moment. So this webinar will be about 1 hour, and we really take the whole time to talk with Miguel. If you have comments or questions, feel free to write them down in the questions and answer box. We will look at them after Miguel's presentation and try to answer as many as possible. I would also like to say this webinar is recorded, so you can listen to it afterwards or share it afterwards if you liked it. If you prefer to listen in Spanish, we have simultaneous translation. You can click on a little globe below at your screen and change to Spanish translation. But now I'm happy to hand over to Jane to introduce herself.
Hello, thank you, Lisa, and hi to Miguel. Yes, my name is Jane Garner. I am an associate professor at Charles Sturt University in Australia, and I know Lisa and Miguel because of our connection to prison libraries and research and study done around prison libraries. We were part of a group that worked together to produce the guidelines for library services to prison libraries, which are international guidelines. And we've continued to work together since then. So it's a great honour to have Miguel speaking with us today. Thank you. I'll hand over to Miguel.
Hello. Thank you for the invitation. First of all, I'm really honored to be here. I truly appreciate the work that UNESCO is doing to highlight the importance of prison libraries. Especially, I will start with this sort of little statement, especially today when we are living in a world where criminality is increasingly used as a political strategy, resulting mostly in harsher punishments without addressing the root causes of the problems. So I'm pretty sure that just like us, everyone working to promote literature, reading or writing in prisons has witnessed the impact these processes can have on the personal and social development of people behind bars. So I'm really glad to be here to have this space to share with everyone what we are doing in Chile. On a personal note, I'm really glad to be here with both of you. You are really important people in this world. We are in some way building together. So, if you don't mind, let's kick off. I have many things to tell you. I'm going to share my screen. I'm sure I'll be running out of time later. So, can you see the presentation?
Yes, that's great.
Okay. Well, I know the official name was Turning Page Behind Bars, but I decided to take our 10-year journey as the main theme of this presentation. What we've done, what we've learned along the way. I still can't believe it's already been 10 years. And in this decade, we've set up 80 libraries, well-functioning libraries, which now have the potential to provide library services to over 56,000 people. And that's is more than 88% of the incarcerated population in our country. These figures, are constantly changing, especially today because of the reasons I mentioned before. And that's unfortunately a trend that is being seen worldwide. Speaking of the prisons around the world, I think it's important to provide some context when we talk about prisons. Over the years, because of my work, I've had the chance to visit many prisons, both in Chile and in abroad too. And I could say that while it's true that there are many similarities, there are also key differences that must be taken into account when implementing any kind of program, whether it's related to sports, health, education, or libraries. Um, um, if I have to define in one word our prisons, I'd say socials. Social prisons where people spend many hours in overcrowded yards, and the rest of the time they spend many hours on the overcrowded cells. I'd say that more than 99% in our prisons don't have an individual cell. And when I talk about Chilean prisons, I'm in some way talking also about Latin American prisons. We really have a lot of similarities, and unfortunately, overcrowding leads to violence, which sometimes ends in even death. Something that happens more often than we'd like to admit. But there's also a constant, permanent violence where everyone is struggling to defend their space, their food, their social position inside, what is really important, and through violence. So, in short, prison is a highly tense environment. Um, in this context, our libraries are welcoming spaces that invite calm, as you can see in the pictures. We always say our libraries offer dignity, and above all, they provide an opportunity to explore personal and social aspects of life that other space in prison simply don't allow. Um, um, our libraries are beautiful spaces, clean spaces, what make a lot of the difference in prisons. Um, they look better with people. It's not so easy to have pictures, to take pictures to people inside prisons. We have a bunch of people, pictures that we use, always the same pictures in this kind of presentations. Today, our libraries are spaces for gathering and connection. That's really, really important for us. Spaces for learning, of course. And at the end of the day, places where you can escape. They are, of course, places where you can find reading materials and an endless range of digital documents, as we'll see shortly. They also host workshops and all kind of activities. But let me tell you the story from the beginning. We are celebrating our 10th anniversary. However, there's a kind of pre-story, the 3 years between 2012 and 2014. And I mentioned this because although it was not planned that way, it turned out to be the best strategy to lay the foundations for the libraries that were soon to come. In short, there was a massive computer upgrade in public libraries where we worked, and we were about to receive 1,000 or 2,000 computers, used computers, facing the big questions: what would we do with all of them? And in parallel, around that time, we learned about some promising but isolated initiatives and information literacy within prisons. Let's remember 2010 context. Many people didn't even have an email account, and in prisons, many inmates had never even seen a computer. So in that context, we came up with the idea to load those computers with a kind of internet simulation using screenshots in a very basic way, but designed to teach digital skills aimed to improving opportunities for people once they get out of prison. And with that intention, we knocked on the door of Gendarmería. Gendarmería is the institution in charge of prisons in Chile. I know in other countries, Gendarmería is the name of police or border police. In Chile, it's the institution in charge of Gendarmería only. So, of course, the plan made sense, and we signed a formal agreement. In these 3 years, we learned a lot. I had the chance to visit every single prison in Chile. We learned how prisons operate, how interinstitutional relationships work, and we saw the potential impact that a quality library could have. That's when we decided to transform these labs, these spaces, into proper libraries. We plan to do it gradually, adding just a few prisons each year until we reached them all. And that's exactly what we did and what we are still doing. This is a tribute to part of the team who worked on the first libraries. In that year, 2015, we set up 15 libraries. But it's important to mention that before, there was a significant attempt to set up prison libraries back in the early 80s, but those libraries were more or less replicas of public libraries on the outside. I took these pics by myself in that time. These libraries were not adapted to the prison context, and there was not real engagement with the prison community. And that's something we learned in this point, the importance of the prison community as a whole, what is not shaped only for inmates, families, guards, teachers are really important in this prison community life. So, of course, these libraries didn't last. By the time we arrived, all that remained were some old books or shelves. In short, we had to start from scratch. In the first year, our initial step was to bring together people with experience in areas related to our interests. Prison teachers, former inmates, guards, professional prison staff, both from juvenile detention centers or from common traditional adult prisons, public librarians with experience, and literature promoters, both with and without experience in prisons, and many other people. We spoke with each of them individually, and also we held a couple of focus groups under the question, what's the best prison library considering the Chilean reality, or public libraries, or geography, etc. Resources, of course. And that's how our first proposal came about in terms of our first book collection, the activities, the style of the library, and the type of furniture, colors, our partnerships, our stakeholders, the local authorities and their role, etc. We had the opportunity to brought a designer on board, and we worked together to optimize each space. Sometimes the library was set up in a small shop, or an old library, a shared classroom, a shipping container, or a large room too. We agreed that the space should be beautiful and welcoming, a place people would want to spend time in. The design aimed to reflect the sense of escape that the library itself was meant to offer. At this point, I think images speak for themselves. Of course, this is the same place. This is a prison in the south of Chile. Before and after. This is the largest women's prison in Chile, in Santiago. Another prison in the south. This one was a storage of pillows or something. This was a shipping container, is still a shipping container. In this slide, I add an extra picture when inmates were prepared in the space, and that's something that we noticed was really important to develop the sense of ownership in inmates when they prepare the space by themselves. It's really different to get a beautiful space already done. So in general, inmates help to the implementation itself. We also decided to paint the outside of each library in the brightest, most colorful shade of red we found, to make sure it got everyone's attention. There would be no doubt that was the library. And the first one you can see on the left is not a shipping container. It's half of a shipping container. The other half is the church. But even that size, this is one of the most active libraries we have because it's located in the middle of the yard. So many times we would rather to be located in a good position than a big space. As for the collection, our first input came from the initial focus groups, but later on the data collected through the online software we use in each library began to show us trends and highlight the areas that interest the reader the most. By the way, one key element we gained through our partnership with the penitentiary system was internet access, provided only and specifically for the library software. Of course, today we also ask each person for book suggestions, and we do our best to include them. In a nutshell, today every library is unique. Each one offers a bit of everything, with a strong presence of general literature and Chilean authors. There's also special emphasis on labor support, local interest, I mean, local authors, local language, local places, legal information, of course, and self-help too. It's been really important, and educational materials for school support, even when sometimes the school has their own library. Apart from setting up the libraries themselves, we knew right from the start that were two things we really had to take care of. The first was training personal staff, prison staff, since we didn't have the resources to put someone in charge of each library. The idea was that Gendarmería would assign someone and would be in charge of training them. But the most important area for us was what we call the library activation. We knew that just having books was not enough. They needed to be promoted among the inmates. We were already aware of the negative experience with the old prison libraries from the 80s, which had mostly failed because they were left on their own without any real support or engagement. Maybe the most meaningful part of our work, and the one that's lasted all these years, is the reading and writing promotion workshops. We run these workshops every year in every prison. They usually last between 3 and 6 months, and honestly, they've been a real success. In short, we choose common themes or literary styles, and we read together, which gives them space to share personal experiences connected to those topics. And after that, they write on their own or collectively. And in the end, they create a handmade craft book. We have had several workshops, 6 or 7, I don't remember, but at the moment we have two important workshops that have concentrated the experience we had with all the other. Every year we bring together all the facilitators to have a sort of feedback about topics, readings, time, amount of people, the amount of participants, and so on. So in this moment, we have these two workshops: the story of my life, which is an autobiographical workshop, and a literary route, where participants explore and try out different literary styles. Autobiography is always welcomed. Session by session, they share their experiences and stories from different points of view. Each session focuses on a different topic. For example, their bodies, their tattoos, their scars, their wrinkles, how these things have shaped them and their identities. Or places that have been significant for them, or memories linked to the kitchen, their grannies, their childhood, indeed their loves, dreams, hopes for the future, etc. And everything finished with an individual handmade book, was highly valued. And on the other hand, a literary route, as I mentioned before, they get to know different literary styles like poetry, rap, dramatic collective writings, letters, comics, short stories, etc. And each style always opens up many words, promote conversations, inspires writing. It's really meaningful, this workshop too. And it usually finishes with a shared and collective handmade book. Always craft handmade book, as you can see in the slide. It's really interesting and heartbreaking for us how they choose to share their work and invite more people to take part in the activities. For example, by hanging their work on or other materials to engage people on walls, outside, in yards. Well, as you can see in the picture. When it comes to activating libraries, partnerships have been crucial. We've built alliances with universities, NGOs, foundations, and corporations, collective groups, for example, musical bands, artistic groups, individuals too, and other government departments. And thanks to these partnerships, we receive volunteers, facilitators for workshops, both for reading, writing promotion, or for information literacy workshops too. We receive job support, training in everything, donations, book donations, or board game donations, or blackout curtains that we receive in a specific library to run cinema workshops. The peak I added in this slide happened the day before yesterday when we had a feedback process with some students who are facilitating workshops in all prisons in Santiago. All kind. Well, sorry. In general, the importance of our partnerships is that this allows us to keep the libraries alive and active all the time, and challenging the common idea that they are just places for lending books or running workshops or literary workshops as much. So I'm going to show you some of the activities that libraries have hosted thanks to these partnerships. And for example, this one, writing or recording songs workshop that we worked together with a foundation that were, the name is Pájaros Entre Pugas. Really interesting collective located in Valparaíso, one of the biggest cities here in Chile. So they reached out to a well-known singer in the Latin world. Believe me, Mon Laferte, her name is really well known. She won Latin Grammys and so on. So we had the opportunity to work with her. She led a workshop in a women's prison in Valparaíso. So the women learned how to write songs, and at the end, a music video was created based on one of the songs they wrote. We've held several cinema workshops, but in this one, inmates were able to send video letters to film directors with their thoughts and questions. This was held in pandemic. That's why video letters took importance. And the directors next week replied them with video letters too. And a couple of them even came to visit the prisons in person, having interesting conversation with inmates about the processes involved in the film. Chilean directors, of course. Oh, this comic workshop was also held in several prisons and was led by a well-known comic artist, Pedro Prado. Many people who want to get involved with our work, and when they know that libraries offer this space and even this security inside, they are really able to run different activities. Sometimes libraries organize activities, big activities, but of course, because spaces are small and can't fit many people, these activities often take place in the yards. And again, all of this changes what inmates think the library's role is. This particular play, I like it a lot, was based in the Arabian Nights and was performed in all the women's prisons in Chile, included a post-performance discussion about the role of women in society and violence against them. Other than Cheresade is really well known over here. There have also been photography-related activities held in prisons where participants usually take or edit pictures, but the one I'm showing in this slide had an extra symbolic element using embroidery to decorate meaningful photos. They experienced significant moments, and finally it turned out to be a really emotional activity. Was held by some students under the collaboration with a university. And an NGO specialized in board games developed an interesting project in several prisons, which has resulted in every library now has a board game set. These games encourage teamwork, imagination, vocabulary development, especially collaboration, and of course, fun. They are games. Getting back to our own activities, every year we run a national literary contest, except during pandemic. We were used different themes such as letters, flash fiction, short stories, memoirs, and more. We are currently finishing a book with the latest edition, which received nearly 1,000 submissions. We were crazy, but it was a huge success. That's why we decided to create a well, as I mentioned before, as I mentioned at the beginning, all of this started as an information literacy program with recycled computers, and even now we are using old computers that were decommissioned from public libraries. Today, each library has its own intranet developed by our team, totally offline, with thousands of digital resources. We actually call it the Digital Resources Center, or CRD, by its acronym in Spanish. And the CRD includes training in all kind of things. For example, air conditioning repair, tree pruning, hairstyling, recycling, languages, music, how to play guitar, for example, and many, many, many more. The training sessions may be available as videos or as Moodle courses or courses hosted on platforms we've developed ourselves to add some specific features. And these platforms even offer certification, which participants can download and print. And the certificates include each person's name, as the system operates with a username and a password. The CRD also includes a digital library with podcasts, recipes, indeed all kind of literature, and offline version of Wikipedia, a lot of entertainment like music videos, comedy routines, sport content, and many, many more. And inmates can also find a great deal of legal support. A few years ago, in collaboration with another NGO, we developed a legal support section following an insightful piece of research they carried out in several Chilean prisons. The study identified the most important legal areas in which inmates needed or were most interested in receiving support. And that's how the legal support section was born, featuring a classification of different types of rights and materials in various formats like videos, multimedia, and of course a lot of documents, PDFs. Even though the system works offline, can still get updates, and we can see reports on how it's being used. That's really important for us to have that data. And again, partnerships have been crucial for us to provide content, to adapt content, or deal with copyright issues, for example. There are only two conditions to add new materials to the CRD: the size of the file and copyright, of course. Well, turning to a different topic, an important part of our work over the years have been our partnership with the academies where all Chilean prison guards are trained before beginning their service in prisons. Our work there goes beyond supporting their libraries. They have good libraries, but we aim to raise awareness among them about how the goals of prison libraries align with their own. The idea is that no one graduates from the academy without knowing about our program and what we will find in prisons once they are working on them. And they also take part in literature workshops themselves, as you can see in pictures. It's always a good and fun moment. Well, I'm really glad to tell you a little bit about the LEEN project. In 2021, we applied for an Iberoamerican grant to research the state of the art in prison libraries and reading promotion activities across the region. During that process, we met many people who were eager to connect, share experiences, and build projects together. Sorry. Many of them were running similar activities at the same time in different countries without meet each other. And that's how our LEEN project was born. And it ended up becoming much more than just a list of initiatives, as was the original project. Today we have this website, which is the largest repository of prison literature in the Spanish-speaking world, although it also includes documents in Portuguese and Catalan. They are part of Iberoamerica too. If you don't know, Iberoamerica is not a well-known concept, but Iberoamerica is Latin America plus Spain and Portugal. And in this website, you can find papers, guidelines, educational materials, and templates, as well as publications based on writings by people incarcerated, what offer a valuable insight into prison life and thought from the inside. The LEEN library, digital library on the website, has a lot of interesting books that were written in prison. In 2022, the first joint project emerged, a call to write letters to incarcerate men and women whose replies would be developed simultaneously in prisons in Chile and Colombia, where writing workshops were held in person. We received letters from all over. We prepared a special website for this project, and there was also an exchange of letters between the two prisons involved, Santiago de Chile and Medellin, Colombia. It was a wonderful experience, which was captured as part of the project in a paper featuring an interesting qualitative analysis of the topics discussed and experiences of the participants, including facilitators. We are currently working with a little group on a joint publication. Was a dream, an anthology of prison writings. Thanks to funding from Uruguay, we will be able to see it printed this year. Here you can see some common initiatives that we found, the original research, reading clubs, collective publication, and all of them were located in in different places at the same time. We found more than 300 initiatives in 20 countries, and we are still discovering more, finding more and more people and initiatives. So this is the LEM project. And this here you can see some screenshots of different projects made in parallel in different countries. Letters in Chile and Colombia, book donations with 10. What was run in Chile and Brazil and Colombia, Spain at the same time. Publications, of course, many of them with writings. And well, to finish, I'm sure I ran out of time. What we are thinking for the future, we of course want to reach all the prisons in our country. It's not so easy. Also, stronger connection with prison psychosocial departments, as our workshops are so emotional. They are really interested on that stories. So probably we will have some work together in the next years. And studies. By the way, we started our first study last year. We identified, thanks to our data collected, the most avid readers in all the country, and we travel and we interviewed them. I did it by myself. I interviewed around 50 avid readers in prison, and well, the results will be released next September, so I don't talk really much about it now, but I could say that the most interesting collaboration that we will be to the field, where you, Jane, are a protagonist, of course, read a lot of your papers. Other than the escapism, you describe what is, of course, 100% agreed in all readers. The point we want to highlight in this paper is what we call the social dimension of literature inside prison. How people at the same time that get isolated reading get the important tools to face the prison and the society inside and all that rules. But next September, we are already preparing some activities to share our findings. This study is in collaboration with the University of Groningen from the Netherlands. So, and this is a tribute to our current team, Bernardita, Ivan, Gloria, and Isabella. We are working really hard to keep these libraries active. And yeah, thank you. And here you can find my email, if just in case you want to know more or contact or run activities together. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you,
That's
Miguel.
it.
That was very, very interesting. I have some questions for you, and we have some time. So let's look at what we have. Geert was interested in knowing what happens when your staff are on strike. If there are not enough staff to open the library, what happens during those times?
Well, staff is always an issue. I'd love to have people hired by us in every prison, but that's not possible. And so, under our collaboration with Gendarmería, they provide the person in charge, what is mostly a guard. In around 90%, they are guards. So guards, at least here in Chile, have a high rotation between prisons. They constantly are moving on to other prisons. So we are constantly training new people in charge. It's a weekly task, actually. And yes, they have strikes from time to time, but it's not a big deal. But there's an important thing that I didn't tell. Every library has an inmate in charge as well. That's something that we have been promoting, and since 2 years ago or something, Gendarmería created an official document that forced in some way to every prison has to sign to sign an inmate. So we also train them, and that's has been really good to deal with that problem that probably has been seen in other places. That's why the person is asking. Yeah, that sometimes we have some libraries closed for a while because of that. For example, in summers, when the people in charge is a teacher, was for us the best option. Schools closed during summer. So in some cases, we have to close these libraries for 2 months. Yeah.
Thank you. George has a question about the support that you needed from the jails. Have you found the jails are supportive of you putting libraries into the jails?
Has been a journey. But I'd say that increasingly we have more and more support from jail and the institution in general. When we start this work 10 or more years ago, there were no spaces for libraries in any prison. Always was the classroom or any space as storage, as I told you before. But the prisons that have been built in this time include a space for a library, and that's happened because the awareness and the importance that they have been the increased awareness that they develop thanks to the results of our libraries. We have to deal with some guards that they don't give the enough importance to library. That's why we identified many years ago the root of the problem, and we started our work in academies where they are trained. But in general, in this point, we are really happy about the improvements in terms of this relationship and this importance that they give to the library. Yeah, and the institution in charge, Gendarmería, also give resources, for example, for educational materials, for repair and fix spaces, and even to some salaries for some inmates that are in charge of libraries. Not all of them, but some of them.
Thank you. Antenna has a question about the work you do with families. Could you say some more about that work?
We have had some works with family, isolated works. For example, I don't remember the year, we ran a project where inmates create and record stories to send to their kids outside. Was really meaningful in that time in CDs, but the results were really, really meaningful. Some libraries lend books to families when they are visiting, and next week they get the book back. But in general, I'd say I run the workshops by myself every week in the largest prison in here in Santiago, and I could say, for example, the handmade book they create in every workshop is always handed out to their kids, to their wives, to their mothers. So there are a connection between our work in workshops and with family. And I don't remember in this point more work with families other than that.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. There are questions here that we won't have time to answer. So we might look at sending those to you, Miguel, to answer later.
Okay.
One question I think we have time for, do you have an idea of how you will evaluate the impact of the libraries?
Yes, that's why we started with study last year, but it's always a question we are talking about. It's impossible to measure the impact in terms of avoid recidivism or so on. When we started our program, we were focused on bring tools to create a better connection with the liberty when they were released. But during the years, we learned about the impact inside, the impact that some people don't want to have tools to the liberty. Some people are imprisoned for 20 years or 10 years. They are not thinking in that impact, that process, but they acquire tools to face the daily life inside. Well, from the other point of view, every workshop we run ends with a little evaluation that we systematize every year. And in general, they say that they thanks to workshops or thanks to reading, they had better conversation with their families, for example. Or they had, for the first time in their life, the chance to put their thoughts and their feelings into words, and they valued a lot that process. And in general, they continue writing or reading. So we think that when a kid goes to prison each Sunday to visit the incarcerated father or mother, and the conversation is about books, about education, that could change a little bit this cycle. You know what I'm talking about, you know? So we think that's the real impact we've seen. And I'm sure, as I said at the beginning, every people that work bringing literature to prisons think the same. All of us have seen the impact in every person. I have names in my head in this moment. How I notice they changes, some kind of changes. Some it's hard to explain the psychological processes that you can notice when they are writing or talking about what they thought during their writing processes. So, yeah.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Miguel. Many people are saying thank you, and it's been inspiring to listen to you. And Lisa will close off for us.
Yes, very, very much. Thank you, Miguel. You mentioned this impact research you have been doing for your PhD, correct? In the last years, and that you will.
Yes.
Yes, and you will
I decided
present
to
it.
study by myself.
Yes, but personally, I think this is the most interesting aspect. As we could see in your presentation, you come from modernizing the prison libraries, then putting a lot of activities, making these prison libraries very attractive and welcoming. I think a big compliment from our side for what you achieve in your libraries in Chile. And for now, I say goodbye to everybody. Goodbye.